U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry visits Kenya to discuss security, investment, and human rights. Journalists are recognized for reporting from the world's hotspots, despite danger and persecution. And a young Ghanaian makes it to the top of her country's fashion industry by going traditional. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is in Kenya Monday on a two-stop visit to Africa. Secretary Kerry met with Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta to discuss counter-terrorism and ways to repel the threat of Al-Shabaab, the terrorist group that killed 148 people at Garissa University on April the 2nd. Following the attack, Kenya asked for more help with intelligence and security measures from the U.S. and its European allies to prevent further attacks by the extremist group. The U.S., along with other Western nations, already provide training and other support for the security forces. Kerry, who arrived on Sunday, also commemorated the 1998 bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi, in which more than 200 people died before meeting Kenyatta. Speaking to VOA in Nairobi, citizens welcomed the visit by Mr. Kerry.
The US can do a lot in the issue of security because technologically they are very much improved, well advanced. And I think they can share their information with us, their training.
I think the visit is a win-win situation for both countries. As you know, America, the relationship between Kenya and America prior to election was not that good. And I think the American government want to mend that relationship.
I think the changing relationship is certainly in part due to the fact that the charges against President Kenyatta have been dropped. That was part of the reason for the frosty relationship over a certain period. Kenya hasn't only had very warm relations with the U.S. On a diplomatic front, but also has, in terms of the Kenyan people and the people of the United States, both of whom look at each other very, very favorably. I went to university in the U.S., so I know this from my own experience.
Well, Kenyatta's spokesman said on Twitter that investment, trade, as well as a planned visit by President Barack Obama to Kenya later this year were also discussed. Secretary Kerry is also slated to stop in Djibouti. Now, Secretary Kerry spoke at a press conference after meeting with the Kenyan officials.
Kenya also needs international assistance and international solidarity on another matter. That is the challenge of hosting hundreds of thousands of refugees who have fled to this country for protection from persecution, fear, and war. I know that represents a burden to the people here. I know people here are feeling that burden, particularly after an event like Garissa. It's unavoidable. It's completely understandable. But on the other hand, Kenya can be extraordinarily proud of the fact that it stands out as a country that has welcomed people from their terror in other countries, and that Kenya stands as a partner in the effort to bring to justice those who perpetrate that kind of terror.
Well, VOA State Department correspondent Pam Dawkins is traveling with Secretary Kerry and now joins us live via Skype from Nairobi. Pam, quite a number of security issues to discuss in Nairobi, right?
Absolutely, Vincent. Vincent, as a matter of fact, Secretary Kerry started his news conference by offering condolences to the victims and family members of the attack at Garissa University. He said that tragedies like this cause momentary turmoil and chaos and grief, but instead of dividing people, they actually bring people closer together. He talked about border security and law enforcement and said that these were important, but he said the bigger imperative is to persuade people to refrain from joining groups like Al-Shabaab. He also said there's a need to build trust between authorities and members of the local community.
Now, we know that the massive refugee camp, Dadaab, has been in the news and in discussions. What is the Secretary saying that needs to be done about that refugee camp?
Indeed, it has been in the news. Some Kenyan authorities have expressed an interest in having the camp closed because of concerns that it is a security risk. Secretary Kerry announced new aid that will help Dadaab and the other refugee camps in Kenya. He said the U.S. will provide an additional $45 million in assistance to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees for Kenya, and that's going to raise the total assistance to about $289 million for the last 2 fiscal years. And of course, some of that money will be used to support the large numbers of Somalis who are refugees in Kenya.
Now, Pam, in the neighborhood of Kenya, we have South Sudan that has been in turmoil. What did Secretary Kerry say about that?
Secretary Kerry said that South Sudan was a country that has shown great promise, but he said that promise was at grave risk of being squandered because of civil unrest. He announced an additional $5 billion in support for South Sudan and international efforts to create a credible and impartial justice mechanism.
Now, you have a few more hours or several hours in Nairobi. What's going to happen next that we can expect to hear from you?
Well, in addition, Kerry will be meeting tomorrow with civil society leaders. In addition to meeting with President Kenyatta today, he also met with opposition leaders. He said his goal during his visit to Kenya was to get perspective from a wide variety of people.
Well, thank you very much for joining us from Nairobi, Pam. That is Pam Dawkins, a VOA State Department correspondent reporting live via Skype from Nairobi, Kenya. And now to the U.S., hundreds of people gathered in front of Baltimore City Hall Sunday for a peaceful demonstration after the mayor lifted a citywide overnight curfew. Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake issued a statement saying she did not want to leave the curfew in place longer than necessary. The American Civil Liberties Union and business owners, especially restaurants, had criticized the curfew.
I'm a grown adult. I'm 30 years old. I should not have to be in before 10. I understand it was for safety, but for a lot of the businesses that are in Baltimore City, they were losing a lot of money.
Shortly after the mayor's announcement ending the curfew, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan said some of the 4,000 soldiers and police brought in from other states have begun to leave the city.
It's going to take a little while for us to get totally back to normal, but I think lifting the curfew is a good idea. It's been a really rough week, but let's get back to normal in the city and get people back to work and back to school and get people coming back into the city to visit the shops that were really devastated this week, and the small mom and pop stores and restaurants. They need your help, so we want to encourage everybody to come back to the city. It's safe, and we've got calm and peace in the city.
Baltimore was in turmoil last week after the funeral for 25-year-old Freddie Gray, an African-American man who died last month while in police custody. Parts of the city exploded in violence after Gray's funeral last Monday, leaving stores and cars burned, police officers hurt, and more than 200 people arrested. Baltimore's state attorney's office has charged 6 officers involved in Gray's arrest, 3 of them African-American, with crimes ranging from manslaughter to murder. Prosecutors say Gray was arrested for no reason and that officers ignored his pleas for medical help. The city's police union will fight the charges. Well, a Nigerian military rescue operation ended months of captivity for hundreds of women and children who had been kidnapped by Boko Haram militants. The National Emergency Management Agency, or NEMA, said Sunday the group of 275 rescued last week in northeastern Nigeria arrived at a refugee camp where they will be receiving medical care and trauma counseling. A camp official said many of the children were being treated for critical malnourishment and 21 others were receiving care for gunshot wounds and fractured limbs. NEMA had reported at least 1 death and several injuries during the rescue operation. Many Boko Haram female captives are used as sex slaves and human shields.
They took me so I could marry one of their commanders. When they realized I was pregnant, they said I was impregnated by an infidel, and they killed him. Once you deliver in a week's time, we will marry you to our commander, they said. I delivered at night, and we were rescued by the soldiers the following morning.
Well, several hundred women and children have been rescued from the forest region in the past week, and officials are trying to determine where they were taken from. None appear to be from the group of 200 schoolgirls kidnapped last year in Chibok. Now, to another crisis, 4 more people, including a 101-year-old man, have been rescued from underneath rubble days after the devastating earthquake in Nepal. But officials say 8 days after the quake, hopes of finding more survivors are fast fading, and the death toll could climb much higher than the current total of more than 7,000. Thousands of people are still missing, including about 1,000 visiting European. U.S. military aircraft, heavy equipment and air traffic controllers arrived in Nepal Sunday. They will help manage the growing piles of relief supplies clogging Nepal's only international airport in Kathmandu, which is struggling to distribute the aid that has been arriving from around the world since the 7.8 magnitude quake struck.
They're going to make an immediate difference. So we've got search and rescue teams waiting to go out to the most remote areas. We've got relief supplies, especially shelter. I think most people don't understand that shelter is the most pressing need. And so we're going to take those things out starting tomorrow morning. And so to the people that have been affected by this earthquake, it's going to make an immediate impact on their lives.
Well, the United Nations said more than 8 million people have been affected by the earthquake, and at least 2 million have been displaced. Well, Burundi's street demonstrations turned deadly again on Monday afternoon when police opened fire on a crowd of protesters. Witnesses say at least 2 protesters were killed in fresh anti-government street demonstrations. The protests, often violent, began last week when President Pierre Nkurunziza announced he was seeking a 3rd term as president. His opponents say another term in office would violate Burundi's constitution. The unrest has plunged the East African nation into its worst political crisis since the conflict that pitted majority Hutus against minority Tutsis ended, now reviving ethnic tensions in a region where other presidents will soon face term limits. Well, 10 migrants drowned in the Mediterranean near the coast of Libya during the past few days, but at least 6,000 were rescued as people smugglers took advantage of calm seas to attempt the often perilous crossing to Europe's southern shores. Among 4 boatloads recovered overnight by the Italian Navy ship Batica was a woman in labor who later gave birth to a baby girl. All of those rescued were ferried to Italian ports, with some arriving on Italy's southernmost island, Lampedusa, and others taken to Sicily and Calabria. The Italian Coast Guard said it rescued hundreds of migrants on at least 16 boats Sunday, following the rescue of nearly 3,700 Saturday. The unending flood of migrants leaving the chaos of Libya for a more stable life in Europe is continuing, even after about 800 people on one overcrowded boat drowned in a capsized last month. Now, U.S. President Barack Obama has honored journalists who have reported from hotspots around the world despite danger and persecution by the governments who want to silence their voices. On Friday, Mr. Obama invited to the White House 3 such courageous journalists, including VOA's Fatima Tlisova, as part of his observance of World Press Freedom Day, which was marked on Sunday. VOA's Latiza Hoke reports.
President Obama met on Friday with Vietnamese journalist Diu K, Ethiopian Lili Mengesha, and Russian Fatima Tlisova. All 3 were harassed, jailed, and even tortured for exposing the truth their governments are trying to conceal.
Journalists give all of us as citizens the chance to know the truth about our countries, ourselves, our governments. That makes us better, it makes us stronger, it gives voice to the voiceless, exposes injustice, and holds leaders like me accountable.
Tlisova said during the emotional meeting, Mr. Obama gave her a handwritten letter for her parents, praising her courage. The Russian journalist was detained, threatened, and tortured for reporting on the brutality of Russian military operations in the North Caucasus, as well as disappearances and corruption.
Situation with press freedom in Russia is deteriorating rapidly. Most of the media outlets are controlled by the government. the independent voices are lesser and lesser. Journalists are being killed, arrested, intimidated. Censorship is high, and the message sent by the killing of journalists to other journalists is so strong that the press starts to self-censoring itself as a mean of survival.
President Obama said the right to express oneself and one's conscience without danger is a universal human right that the United States will continue to defend. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. We'll be right back with more news in a moment. Please stay with us.
Hamilton Live is a live audience performance. With live music, you have that interaction. There's nothing like getting that immediate feedback from the folks that you're performing to. They feel it and they respond back to you. You see it in their eyes. You know that you're connecting with them. Like if any form of communication, it's that response that you get back.
Welcome back. Ghanaian fashion designer Mabel Simpson has always been a fashion fanatic. Now she is the founder and creative director of her own label. Today, her use of the African prints has made her one of Ghanaian's top young designers. VOA Spondiho tells us more.
Mabel Simpson resigned her office job in 2010 to launch her own label M-Sims. Since then, she has created quite a buzz on the global fashion scene. She has participated in several fashion shows showcasing innovative, unique and cutting-edge fashion designs.
Imagine giving this to your wife or your sister or your mom. I'm sure she'll be excited.
Miss Mabel Simpson is part of the next generation of African entrepreneurs who are trying to make a difference in their communities. Simpson's fascination with fashion and her love for raw African prints started when she was a young girl. And now she competes with some of the biggest names in the African fashion industry.
We started very little. I started the M-Sims brand with $100. I purchased a few raw materials, and then I borrowed my grandmother's sewing machine. This was a machine that was about 53 years old, because it was when she was going to marry her husband that, you know, and in the Ghanaian tradition, when a lady is going to marry, you are supposed to add a sewing machine as part of her bride price, you know. So that was the machine that I borrowed from her because she wasn't using it.
She says her goal of M-Sims is to produce quality handmade products with African prints made in Ghana.
For me, starting M-Sims, it was about making or manufacturing quality made in Ghana products, ensure that it could meet international standards so we could sell on the global market as well. My clients include individuals who want to project Ghana on the global market, individuals who still believe in Ghana and who believe in Africa.
Fashion analysts say M-Sims collections are known for their uniqueness. Here, M-Sims manufactures handmade accessories such as handbags, laptop bags, shoes, and other accessories with African prints transformed into stylish pieces. Despite her success, running a startup in Ghana has its own challenges. For example, most people go for more than 24 hours without power, and they have to rely on expensive generators.
It's a huge problem because for us, every week we spend about 350 to 400 Ghana cedis just on fuel. It drains you financially, but that's why I said that sometimes, even when there's no light at the end of the tunnel, you need to see the light.
Fashion experts said that the industry has tremendous potential to meet the growing demand for high-end products in the global market, including Africa's growing middle class. Simpson says that young African designers can play a significant role on the continent through entrepreneurship.
It grows the economy, and if you want to be an entrepreneur, I always say that start small and then grow. And when you're growing or when you start, don't let money be your focus, because if you let money be your focus, you're going to fail. You need to sacrifice and make sure that you build the business, make sure that it's a brand that you're building.
As the M. Simpson label becomes more popular and expands, other young African designers are also looking forward to expressing their creativity in the marketplace. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Accra, Ghana.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Stay with us. Now, let's first stay in West Africa. See, West Africa produces about 75% of the world's cocoa supply. But it is in East Africa that entrepreneurial chocolate makers are emerging. VOA's Caroline Turner has more.
At a small factory in Nairobi, Kenya, Nahil Ahmed and his team are busy shaping handmade chocolate treats with flavors such as chili-infused pralines, truffles, and bars. After his first taste of fine chocolate at culinary school in South Africa, Ahmed is now on a mission to create Africa's own prestigious, world-class artisan chocolate brand. Today, he produces 100 kilograms of chocolate a month. Although West Africa produces the majority of the world's cocoa, Africa chocolatiers are forced to import key ingredients such as raw chocolate, cocoa butter, and cocoa powder. Ahmed wants to change things by creating products that can compete on the global market.
The cocoa that is bought from West Africa is usually taken by massive companies and taken abroad. The process of chocolate is then done there and then sold for quite an expensive amount. But today, people are getting exposed and people know what chocolate is. People are curious to know how to make chocolate. So that same cocoa, instead of going outside Africa, can still be within Africa, and the skill is now coming to Africa, and chocolate is able to be made locally.
Chocolate consumption in sub-Saharan Africa is on the rise. Sales in South Africa, the continent's largest market, rose to 2.5 billion rand, or $531 million in 2014, from 5.8 billion rand in 2013, according to the market research firm Nielsen. The most prominent mass-market chocolate maker in West Africa is Ghana's Golden Tree, which makes around 1,000 tons of chocolate per year. But African chocolate, made in Africa, is not new. Last year, young Togolese entrepreneurs made organic chocolate with locally sourced cocoa beans, known as Choco Togo. Madagascar is home to the world's finest rich orange and red pods of cocoa, a favorite for American and European chocolate manufacturers because of the fruity flavor. However, industry analysts say Africa needs to carve its own chocolate-making niche to compete globally.
Il s'agit, à mon sens, de voir quel marché on cible.
If we look at it from the point of view that there is a large number of people in the world who want chocolate and who can't consume it because it's a luxury product, so then we need to put on the market a chocolate of certain quality that is acceptable. I think that's a sector that can work.
Back in Kenya, at his shop in Nairobi's upscale village, Ahmed's store, Absolute Chocolate, is a hit with chocolate lovers.
Yeah, you can actually get a message on the chocolate, so you can just order for a specific chocolate and then they'll deliver that specific one, the one that you want. So that's one thing I like about the chocolate. They're different, custom made.
With revenues between 400 to 600 Kenya shillings, or $4,000 to $6,000 per month, Ahmed hopes to expand his business to eventually have a bean-to-bar production in Kenya. Carolyn Turner, VOA News.
Well, now let's take a short break, but still to come on Africa 54. Stay with us because we'll have more news in a moment.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Kenya, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry offers help to President Kenyatta in countering Somalia's al-Shabaab militants. In Burundi, several demonstrators are wounded on Monday as police opened fire at protesters who oppose President Pierre Nkurunziza's re-election bid. In Nigeria, handouts from the Nigerian Air Force shows Boko Haram militants fleeing Sambisa's forest and captured women and children being freed. Finally, in Togo, Constitutional Court confirms the victory of incumbent President Faure Gnassingbé in the April 25th elections. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Well, it was billed as boxing's fight of the century. But was it? Well, for more, we turn to Sunny Young with the sunny side of sports. Hello, Sunny.
Hello, Vincent, and sporty greetings once again to our Africa 54 viewers. Let's begin with boxing. Floyd Mayweather scored a unanimous decision victory over Manny Pacquiao over the weekend in Las Vegas, Nevada, in the richest fight in boxing history. The 38-year-old Mayweather unified the welterweight belts by scoring his 48th consecutive victory without a loss. He used his jab and longer reach to frustrate Pacquiao. There were no knockdowns. At the post-fight press conference, Mayweather said he'll fight one more time in September, then retire.
Monday, I'm going to relinquish all belts. Monday, I made a decision in the back that my last fight may not be a championship fight. I'm going to give up all the belts. It's still going to be a 12-round fight, but I'm going to relinquish all the belts Monday.
Meanwhile, 36-year-old Manny Pacquiao suffered his 6th loss as a prize fighter. He said he injured his shoulder in training camp and was not at full strength.
2 weeks before the fight and 1 week before the fight, it's my shoulder is getting better and better, but not really 100%, totally 100%. Recover, but at least I can use it. But something wrong.
Filipino star Manny Pacquiao enjoyed most of the crowd support at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas. Floyd Mayweather, who lives in Vegas, was booed by many of the fans when the decision was announced. I thought it was a fair decision, and when the final tally is counted, the blockbuster bout could bring in between $400 million and $500 million. I'm VOA Sunny Young, and that's the sunny side of sports. Vincent?
And that's our show. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words, where we teach you about words in the news.
This word is from a story about Mali's presidential election.
It is a wide-open race with 28 candidates running for president. Though 4 of them have been prime minister, there is no government-backed candidate.
A candidate is a person who is running for a political office.
And a candidate could be seeking any elective office, from a national president to a city mayor.
Now, when you hear the word candidate, your English will be good enough to know what this news word means.
For more news words, visit our website at learningenglish.voanews.com.